Captain Jake Morrison stared at the massive structure floating in the darkness of space and felt his heart skip a beat. The thing was huge, bigger than anything humans had ever built. It looked like a moon made of metal and crystal, spinning slowly against the star field. Lights flickered across its surface in patterns that seemed almost alive. "What do you think it is, Captain?" asked Lieutenant Commander Lisa Barnes from her station. She was the ship's tactical officer and had been studying the readings for the past hour. Her dark eyes were wide with amazement and concern. Jake shook his head slowly. The UES Liberty had been on a routine survey mission when they detected the strange energy signature. They were supposed to be mapping empty space beyond the Kepler belt, looking for mineral deposits and possible colony sites. Instead, they had found this impossible structure. "I have no idea, Lisa, but it's definitely not natural," Jake replied. He turned to his chief engineer. "Ryan, what are the sensors telling us?" Commander Ryan Kelly looked up from his console with a confused expression. He was a big man with graying hair who had been working on starships for 20 years. Nothing surprised him anymore except this. "The readings don't make sense, Captain. The structure appears to be made of materials we've never seen before. It's generating some kind of energy field that's interfering with our long-range sensors. And Captain, it's scanning us back." Dr. Amanda Foster moved closer to the main screen. She was the ship's xenobiologist, a job that had been mostly theoretical until now. Her specialty was studying the possibility of alien life, but she had never expected to actually encounter it. "The scan patterns are definitely artificial," she said quietly. "Whatever built this is intelligent, and it knows we're here." Jake felt a chill run down his spine. Humanity had been exploring space for over a century, but had never found any sign of alien intelligence. Now they were face to face with proof that humans were not alone in the universe. "Captain, we're receiving a transmission," said Communications Officer Lieutenant Danny Walsh. His voice was shaking slightly. "It's coming from the structure, and Captain, it's in English." The bridge fell silent. Jake could hear the hum of the ship's engines and the quiet beeping of various systems. Everyone was holding their breath. "Put it through, Danny," a voice filled. The bridge, clear and calm, with a strange musical quality. "Greetings, humans of the vessel Liberty. I am Ambassador Cathvar of the Zephyrian Collective. We have been expecting you." Jake exchanged glances with his crew. How could they have been expecting them when this was an unplanned encounter in empty space? "This is Captain Jake Morrison of the United Earthship Liberty. How do you know our language, and how did you know we were coming?" There was a pause before the alien responded. "We have been observing your species for many years, Captain Morrison. Your people call it Earth, yes. The third planet from your yellow star. We know much about humanity, and we bring an invitation." Dr. Foster stepped forward. "An invitation to what?" "To join the galactic community," came the reply. "Your species has reached the required level of technological development. The Galactic Council has decided it is time for humanity to take its place among the civilized races of this galaxy." Jake felt the weight of the moment settling on his shoulders. This was first contact with an alien species, and they were talking about some kind of galactic government. It was beyond anything he had been trained for. "Ambassador Cathvar, would it be possible for us to meet face to face?" Jake asked. "Of course, Captain. We will extend a docking port for your shuttle. Please bring your senior officers and your scientist who studies life. The Council is most interested in learning about human biology and culture." An hour later, Jake found himself walking through an airlock into an environment unlike anything he had ever imagined. The corridor was filled with soft blue light that seemed to come from the walls themselves. The air smelled of something like flowers, but with an undertone he couldn't identify. Ambassador Cathvar was waiting for them in a large chamber. The alien was tall and thin with pale skin, that had a slight crystalline quality. Its eyes were large and completely black, and when it moved, there was a grace that seemed almost like floating. "Welcome aboard the diplomatic station Haven," the ambassador said. "Please be comfortable. We have prepared an environment suitable for human physiology." Jake introduced his team. Lisa Barnes stood at attention, her hand resting near her sidearm out of habit. Ryan Kelly was looking around at the technology with obvious fascination. D.R. Foster was staring at the ambassador with the intensity of a scientist making the discovery of a lifetime. "Tell us about this Galactic Council," Jake said. Cathvar gestured, and the air above them filled with images. Hundreds of different alien species appeared, some familiar in basic shape, others completely bizarre. There were beings that looked like living crystals, creatures that seemed to be made of pure energy, and things that defied easy description. "The Council consists of 423 member species," the ambassador explained. "We have maintained peace and cooperation for over 2,000 of your years. War is unknown among us. Conflict is resolved through mediation and understanding." Dr. Foster leaned forward. "How is that possible?" "In human history, conflict has been constant." The ambassador's expression changed slightly, becoming more serious. "This is one of the things that concerns the Council about your species, Dr. Foster. We have observed your wars, your weapons, your willingness to harm your own kind. It is troubling, but the Council believes humanity can be taught better ways." Jake felt a warning bell go off in his mind. There was something in the alien's tone that he didn't like. "What exactly does membership in this council involve?" he asked. "Your species would gain access to advanced technology, trade with hundreds of worlds, and knowledge that would advance human civilization by centuries. In return, you would agree to abide by the sacred compact of non-aggression and submit to council. Guidance in matters of expansion and development." Lisa Barnes spoke up for the first time. "What if we refuse?" Cathvar looked at her with those large black eyes. "Refusal is not expected, Lieutenant Commander Barnes. The benefits of membership far outweigh any concerns about independence. No species has ever chosen to remain isolated. Once they understand what the Council offers." Jake made his decision. "Ambassador, I'm just a ship captain. This kind of decision has to be made by Earth's government. Can you provide us with coordinates to reach your council and information about the membership process?" "Of course, Captain Morrison. We will transmit all necessary data to your vessel." The Council Nexus awaits humanity's delegation. As they prepared to leave, Dr. Foster asked one more question. "Ambassador, you mentioned that no species has ever refused membership. What happens to species that are too aggressive to join?" For the first time, Cathvar hesitated before answering. "Such species are relocated to worlds where they cannot harm others. But this will not be necessary with humanity. The Council has great faith in your species' ability to embrace peaceful coexistence." Jake felt that warning bell get louder as they returned to the Liberty. Something about this whole situation felt wrong, but he couldn't put his finger on what it was. As their ship turned toward Earth with its momentous news, he wondered if humanity was about to make the biggest mistake in its history. Secretary of State Helen Carter stood at the observation deck of the UES Endeavour and watched the Council Nexus grow larger on the screen. 6 months had passed since Captain Morrison's first contact with the aliens, and Earth had been in chaos. Ever since, religious groups claimed it was the end times, while scientists celebrated the greatest discovery in human history. Politicians argued about what it meant for national sovereignty, and economists worried about the impact on global markets. Helen had been chosen to lead humanity's first diplomatic mission to the Galactic Council because of her reputation as a tough negotiator. She had spent 30 years in international diplomacy and had never backed down from a difficult situation. But this was unlike anything she had ever faced. "It's incredible," said Dr. Kevin Wright, standing beside her. The physicist had been selected for the delegation because of his expertise in advanced propulsion systems. The aliens had provided basic specifications for faster-than-light travel, and Kevin was one of the few humans who understood the mathematics involved. General Marcus Stone joined them at the observation window. He was a career military officer who had seen combat in 3 different conflicts. His presence on the delegation had been controversial, but Earth's leaders wanted military representation in case things went badly. "How many ships do you count, General?" Helen asked. Doc Marcus studied the display carefully. "Thousands, maybe tens of thousands. And that's just what we can see on the surface of that thing." Dyer Susan Martinez looked up from her tablet, where she had been reviewing cultural briefings. As Earth's leading expert on comparative anthropology, she was tasked with helping the delegation understand alien social structures. "The diversity is remarkable," Susan said. "We've identified over 100 different ship designs in the past. Our alone. Each one probably represents a different species." Captain Nicole Davis announced from the bridge that they were being contacted by traffic control. The U.S. Endeavour was Earth's newest and most advanced starship, but compared to the alien vessels around them, it looked primitive. "This is Captain Nicole Davis of the United Earth Ship Endeavour, requesting permission to dock," she transmitted. The response came immediately in perfect English. "Welcome, Earth delegation. You are cleared for docking bay 774. Ambassador, Kethvar is waiting to escort you to the council chambers." As their ship moved through the massive docking complex, Helen got her first real look at alien technology. The docking bay was larger than most Earth cities, with ships of every conceivable design floating in organized patterns. Robotic systems guided each vessel to its assigned berth with mechanical precision. "The level of automation is incredible," Kevin whispered. "I don't see any organic beings operating the docking systems at all." Jake Morrison met them at the airlock. He had been promoted to admiral after his first contact mission and had spent the past months preparing for this meeting. His expression was serious as he briefed the delegation. "The council representatives are waiting in the main assembly hall," Jake told them. "I need to warn you, some of their questions about human society have been difficult to answer. They seem particularly concerned about our military history." Helen nodded. She had expected this would be an issue. Human civilization was built on competition and conflict in ways that apparently made other species uncomfortable. Ambassador Kethvar greeted them in the corridor outside the assembly hall. The Zephyrian looked exactly as Jake had described, tall and graceful, with that strange crystalline quality to its skin. "Secretary Carter, it is an honor to meet Earth's senior diplomat," the ambassador said. "The council is eager to hear humanity's petition for membership." As they entered the assembly hall, Helen felt overwhelmed by the sheer scale of it. The chamber was enormous, with galleries rising up into shadows above them. Hundreds of different beings filled the seats, representing species from across the galaxy. At the center of the hall stood 3 massive figures that clearly represented the council's leadership. The first was a collection of small beings that moved and spoke as one unit. The second appeared to be made of pure energy, shifting and flowing in patterns of light. The third looked like a tree the size of a building, with branches that moved slowly as if in a gentle breeze. "We are the Hegemon Triumvirate," spoke the energy being, its voice echoing from speakers throughout the hall. "We are the archivists, who preserve knowledge, the mediators who resolve disputes, and the shepherds who distribute resources. We welcome humanity to this gathering." Helen stepped forward and began her prepared speech. She spoke about Earth's achievements in science, art, and exploration. She described humanity's journey from a single planet to a spacefaring civilization. She emphasized human creativity, adaptability, and the desire to learn from other cultures. Presentation went well until the Archivist Collective began asking questions about human history. They wanted to know about wars, weapons, and the concept of nations competing against each other. Your species has engaged in armed conflict for its entire recorded history. The archivists said in their strange unified voice, "You have developed weapons capable of destroying your entire planet. You maintain military forces even in times of peace. How do you justify this behavior?" General Stone answered before Helen could stop him. "Conflict has driven human innovation and progress. Our military technology has led to advances in medicine, communications, and space travel. Competition makes us stronger." A ripple of shock went through the assembled aliens. Many species began what Helen assumed was their equivalent of nervous. Chatter. Martinez tried to explain. Human evolution took place on a world with limited resources and many predators. Competition and conflict were necessary for survival. We have learned to channel these instincts into positive directions. The tree-like shepherd spoke for the first time, its voice deep and slow. "We have studied your historical records. Your species has killed over 1 billion of its own kind in organized warfare. You possess weapons that could sterilize entire worlds. What assurance can you give that humans will not bring violence to the galactic community?" Helen felt the weight of the entire human race on her shoulders. "We understand your concerns, but humanity has also shown the capacity for cooperation and peace. We've established international laws, human rights protections, and peaceful resolution of many conflicts. We seek to learn from your example and contribute positively to galactic civilization." Dr. Wright added his perspective. "Human drive for improvement has led to remarkable technological advances. We believe our different approach to problem solving could benefit the Council," the mediator being pulsed with different colors as it considered their words. "Your technical capabilities are impressive, but your social development appears to lag behind other species at similar technological levels. The Council must consider whether humanity can be safely integrated into our peaceful society." The Archivist Collective announced that they would need time to review humanity's application and consult with member species. The formal session was adjourned, but informal meetings would continue. Over the next several days, the human delegation met with representatives from dozens of species. Helen found most of them to be genuinely curious about human culture, though clearly disturbed by some aspects of it. General Stone spent time with various species security personnel and made a troubling discovery. Many Council species had what they called protection services, but no real military capability. When he asked about external threats, he was told that such things didn't exist in Council space. Dr. Wright toured the technical facilities and was amazed by the advanced technology, but he noticed something strange. Most of the equipment was very old, and the aliens seemed to have lost the ability to innovate or improve their systems. Jake Morrison confided his concerns to Helen during a private meeting. "Something doesn't feel right about this place. It's almost too perfect. Where are the young aliens who want to rebel against authority? Where are the innovators and risk-takers? Everyone here seems content to follow the same patterns they've followed for centuries." Dr. Martinez had been studying Council social structures and had reached similar conclusions. Their society appears to have achieved stability by eliminating the forces that drive change and growth. They've created a perfect, peaceful civilization, but at the cost of progress and adaptation. On the final day of their visit, the triumvirate called the human delegation back to the assembly hall. The chamber was packed with alien observers, all waiting to hear the Council's decision about humanity. After careful consideration, the mediator announced, the Council has reached a decision regarding humanity's application for membership. Due to your species' aggressive tendencies and military capabilities, we cannot offer full membership at this time. Helen felt her heart sink, but the mediator continued. However, we recognize humanity's potential and do not wish to see your species develop in isolation. We offer an alternative arrangement. Earth may become a protected protectorate of the Council. You will receive limited access to our technology and trade networks, but must agree to Council oversight of all military development and expansion beyond your current solar system. The offer was clearly meant to be generous, but Helen immediately understood what it really meant. Humanity would become a client state. Jake Morrison walked through the corridors of the Council Nexus with a growing sense of unease. The human delegation had been given 3 days to tour the facilities and learn about galactic civilization while the Council deliberated their offer. What Jake was discovering made him question everything they had been told about this peaceful society. Dr. Kevin Wright joined him as they approached the archives section. The physicist had been granted access to the Council's historical databases, something that was apparently a great honor. Most species waited decades before being allowed to study galactic history. "Kevin, have you noticed anything strange about the aliens we've met?" Jake asked quietly. Kevin nodded. "They're all remarkably similar in their thinking patterns. Even species that look completely different from each other seem to approach problems in almost identical ways. It's like they've all been programmed with the same basic responses." They entered the archive chamber where Archivist Prime Zell 9 was waiting for them. The creature was part of the hive mind collective that served as the Council's living memory. It looked like a large insect with crystalline features and multiple arms that moved in perfect coordination. "Welcome, Admiral Morrison and Dr. Wright," Zell 9 said in the unified voice that all archivists shared. "We are honored to share our recorded knowledge with humanity." Few species show such interest in understanding galactic history. The archive itself was unlike anything Jake had ever seen. The chamber was filled with floating displays that showed images, text, and 3-dimensional models. Information flowed through the air like streams of light, creating patterns that were beautiful and overwhelming at the same time. "This contains the complete developmental history of every Council member species," Zell 9 explained. "You may examine any record that interests you." Kevin immediately began studying the technological development paths of various species. Jake focused on their social and political evolution. What he found disturbed him more with each passing hour. Every single Council species had developed along remarkably similar paths. They all evolved on worlds with abundant resources and few natural predators. They developed cooperative societies early in their evolution and never experienced the resource conflicts that had shaped human civilization. Most had achieved global unity within a few thousand years of developing agriculture. "Zell 9, this seems almost impossible," Jake said. "In human experience, intelligent species develop through competition and conflict. How did all these races avoid that pattern?" The archivist paused in a way that suggested it was consulting with the collective consciousness. "Your question touches upon sensitive historical matters, Admiral Morrison. Not all species that achieved spaceflight were suitable for Council membership. What happened to the ones that weren't suitable?" Another pause, longer this time. "They were relocated to worlds where they could develop without threatening others. The Council's first responsibility is to maintain peace and stability." Jake felt a chill run down his spine. "How many species were relocated?" 127 species over the past millennium," Zell 9 replied matter-of-factly. "They were provided with suitable worlds and left to pursue their own development paths." Kevin looked up from his studies with alarm. "That's more than a quarter of all spacefaring species you've encountered. What happened to them after relocation?" "The Council does not maintain contact with relocated species. Such contact could be disruptive to both parties." Jake realized they were talking about forced exile, possibly on a massive scale. The Council's peaceful civilization was built on removing anyone who didn't fit their model of proper behavior. "Can we see the records of these relocated species?" he asked. "That information is restricted to Council members only," Zell-9 replied. Perhaps after Earth achieves full membership status. Jake and Kevin exchanged glances. They both understood that humanity was being considered for the same fate as those other species if they couldn't prove they belonged in the Council's peaceful society. Meanwhile, General Stone was having his own disturbing conversations in the security sector of the Nexus. He had requested meetings with military personnel from various species, only to discover that the concept barely existed in Council Space. Commander Yeth Kor of the Regelian Defense Corps met with Stone in what passed for a tactical planning center. The alien looked like a tall humanoid with blue skin and multiple eyes, but his equipment and training were unlike anything Stone recognized as military preparation. Your people speak of defense forces, Stone said, but from what I've seen, your primary function seems to be search and rescue operations. Yeth Kor made a gesture that might have been agreement. The Defense Corps exists to protect Council citizens from natural disasters, equipment failures, and medical emergencies. We have not faced external military threats in over 15 centuries. Stone found this hard to believe. What about raiders, pirates, or hostile aliens from outside Council space? Such threats do not exist, General Stone. All spacefaring species in this region of the galaxy are Council members or have been relocated to appropriate worlds. Beyond our borders lie only primitive species that have not yet achieved interstellar travel. But what if someone attacked you? How would you respond? The alien looked confused by the question. Attack implies intentional violence for gain or territory. Such behavior is eliminated during species integration into Council society. Why would anyone attack us? Stone realized that these beings had no concept of warfare as humans understood it. Their ships had no weapon systems, their personnel had no combat training, and their strategies were based entirely on avoiding conflict rather than winning it. Commander, I've heard rumors about something called the Void Runners. What can you tell me about them? For the first time, Yeth Kor showed what Stone interpreted as fear. The Void Runners are a recent phenomenon that the Council does not fully understand. Ships have been disappearing near the galactic rim. When investigation teams arrive, they find only empty space where colonies used to exist. Have you fought them? The Defense Corps has attempted to communicate with them and offer resources for peaceful coexistence. These efforts have been unsuccessful. Current policy is to evacuate threatened areas and hope the phenomenon resolves itself. Stone felt his professional instincts screening warnings. These people were facing a clear military threat, and their response was to run away and hope it went away on its own. Dr. Susan Martinez was discovering equally troubling information in the cultural centers. She had been studying Council social structures and found them to be remarkably uniform, despite the vast diversity of species involved. Every Council species followed the same basic pattern: centralized resource distribution, conflict resolution, through mediation and elimination of competitive behavior. Individual achievement was discouraged in favor of collective harmony. Innovation was carefully controlled to prevent disruptive changes to established social order. It's like they've created a galactic-scale planned society, Susan explained to Helen Carter during a private meeting in their quarters. Every aspect of life is managed by automated systems and AI, networks that maintain perfect balance and stability. Helen frowned as she reviewed the reports from her team. What about personal freedom, individual rights, or democratic participation? Those concepts don't seem to exist here. The Council makes all important decisions based on maintaining stability and preventing conflict. Individual desires are subordinated to collective needs as determined by the ruling systems. Helen realized that accepting Council membership would mean giving up everything that made humanity human. The aliens weren't offering partnership. They were offering absorption into a managed society that eliminated individual initiative and cultural diversity. On their final day of the tour, Jake made a discovery that changed everything. While reviewing historical records with Kevin, they found a data fragment that had somehow avoided the normal classification restrictions. The fragment contained partial records of a species called the HFY, who had been relocated 800 years earlier. According to the incomplete data, they had been an aggressive spacefaring race that refused to accept Council authority. "Kevin, look at this," Jake said, pointing to a technical specification in the record. "This propulsion system design is almost identical to the drive signatures we detected from those mysterious ships." Near the galactic rim, Kevin studied the data carefully. If this is accurate, then the Void Runners aren't some unknown alien threat. They're descendants of a species the Council exiled centuries ago, and they've come back. The implications were staggering. The Council's policy of relocating aggressive species hadn't eliminated the threat of conflict. It had simply delayed it while allowing the exiled races to develop advanced technology in isolation. "We need to warn them," Jake said. "Will they listen?" Kevin replied. "From what we've seen, the Council doesn't want to acknowledge that their peaceful methods might have created this problem." That evening, the human delegation met in secret to discuss their discoveries. The picture that emerged was of a galactic civilization that had achieved peace by eliminating diversity and individual initiative. The Council ruled through advanced technology and social conditioning, removing any species that didn't fit their model of proper behavior. They're not offering U.S. membership. Heal. The Council Assembly Hall was packed with representatives from every member species as the Hegemon Triumvirate prepared to announce their final decision on humanity's membership application. Secretary Helen Carter stood with her delegation in the center of the vast chamber, feeling the weight of hundreds of alien gazes upon them, the mediator being pulsed with soft blue light as it began to speak. After extensive deliberation, the Council has reached a decision regarding Earth's petition for membership. While we recognize humanity's technological achievements and cultural contributions, your species' history of warfare and aggressive tendencies presents significant concerns. Helen felt her heart sinking, but forced herself to maintain a diplomatic expression. She had expected this outcome based on everything they had learned during their visit. However, the mediator continued, the Council does not wish to see humanity develop in dangerous isolation. We offer Earth the status of protected protectorate with access to basic Council technology and limited trade rights. In exchange, Earth must accept Council oversight of all military development and expansion beyond your solar system. The offer was presented as generous, but Helen understood it for what it really was: controlled subordination. Humanity would become a client state, dependent on alien approval for any significant decisions about their future. We are honored by the Council's consideration, Helen replied carefully. However, this decision affects the entire human species and must be discussed by Earth's leadership. We request permission to return home for consultations. The tree-like shepherd rustled its massive branches. Consultations are permitted, but understand that this offer has limitations. The Council's patience with unintegrated species is not infinite. Before Helen could respond to what sounded like a veiled threat, alarms began blaring throughout the Nexus. The sound was unlike anything the humans had heard before, a deep harmonic tone that seemed to resonate through the metal structure itself. Emergency lights bathed the assembly hall in red as automated voices began, announcing evacuation procedures in dozens of languages. The alien representatives looked around in confusion and fear, clearly unprepared for whatever was happening. Ambassador HFY appeared at Helen's side, his crystalline features reflecting the emergency lighting. Secretary Carter, you and your delegation must come with me immediately. The Nexus is under attack. Attack? General Stone stepped forward, his military instincts taking over. By whom? The Void Runners, HFY replied grimly. They have emerged from hyperspace at the edge of the system with a massive fleet. Our defense forces are attempting to make contact, but they are not responding to communication attempts. As they move through corridors filled with panicking aliens, Jake Morrison caught sight of a tactical display showing the approaching threat. The enemy fleet consisted of dozens of ships, unlike anything in the Council database. They were dark, angular vessels that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it, giving them an ominous presence against the star field. Dr. Kevin Wright studied the readings over Jake's shoulder. Those energy signatures are similar to what we found in the archives about the relocated Kethver species. I think these are the descendants of one of the exiled races. General Stone was already analyzing the tactical situation. How many ships does the Council have for defense? Kethvar looked confused by the question. Defense ships. We have approximately 50 vessels of the Defense Corps, but they are equipped for rescue operations and disaster relief, not combat. What kind of weapons do they carry? Weapons? The alien seemed genuinely puzzled. The Defense Corps does not carry weapons. Such equipment would violate the sacred compact of non-aggression. Stone stared at the ambassador in disbelief. You're about to be attacked by a hostile fleet, and your defense forces have no weapons. Before Kethvar could respond, the Nexus shuddered as something impacted its outer hull. More alarms began sounding, and the emergency announcements became more urgent. They reached the command center where Council leaders were attempting to coordinate their response to the attack. Helen watched in amazement as the Defense Corps ships moved toward the enemy fleet with their communications arrays active, still trying to establish peaceful contact. The first Defense Corps vessel exploded in a brilliant flash of light as the Void Runners opened fire with weapons that seemed to tear reality itself apart. The other Council ships immediately began retreat maneuvers, having no way to fight back against the attackers. This is insane, Stone muttered. They're trying to negotiate with an enemy that's actively shooting at them. Captain Nicole Davis contacted them from the U.E.'s Endeavor. Admiral Morrison, we're monitoring the battle from our docking bay. The Council ships are being destroyed faster than they can retreat. Should we take action? Jake looked at Helen, who nodded grimly. Nicole, prepare the ship for combat operations. We may be the only armed vessel in this entire system. Dr. Wright was studying the Void Runner attack patterns. Their tactics are primitive, but effective. They're simply overwhelming the Council forces with superior firepower and numbers. No attempt at strategy or finesse, because they don't need strategy against opponents who won't fight back, Stone replied. This isn't a battle, it's a massacre. The Nexus shuddered again as more enemy weapons found their mark. Through the command center's main display, they could see Void Runner ships approaching the massive space station. Council evacuation ships were launching frantically, but the enemy was targeting them as well. Helen made a decision that would change everything. Admiral Morrison, get your ship into position to cover the evacuation vessels. General Stone, can our weapons do any damage to those enemy ships? Stone studied the tactical data. The Endeavor has standard military armaments, nothing exotic. But if those ships are using conventional technology under all that strange design, we should be able to hurt them. Jake activated his communicator. Nicole, this is Jake. Move the Endeavor out of the docking bay and position us between the evacuating civilians and the enemy fleet. We're going to buy them time to escape, understood, Admiral. All hands to battle stations as the U.E.'s Endeavor moved away from the Nexus. It became the focus of alien attention throughout the system. Council observers watched in amazement as the human ship deployed weapon systems and took an aggressive posture toward the attackers. The first engagement was brief but decisive. The Endeavor's plasma cannons and missile systems found their targets, destroying 2 Void Runner ships in rapid succession. The enemy response was immediate and overwhelming. With a dozen ships converging on the human vessel, Captain Davis proved her skill as a combat commander, using evasive maneuvers and tactical positioning to avoid the worst of the enemy fire while continuing to engage targets. Her crew performed flawlessly under pressure, demonstrating the kind of coordinated aggression a human military doctrine emphasized. Their weapons are powerful, but their targeting systems are predictable, Davis reported. We can handle maybe 6 or 8 of them, but there are too many for sustained combat. Dr. Wright made a crucial observation. The enemy ships are focusing on us because we're the only target that's shooting back. They're ignoring the evacuation vessels as long as we keep their attention. The battle continued for 2 hours, with the Endeavour dancing through space in a deadly game of survival. Captain Davis used every trick in the human military playbook, employing tactics that the Void Runners had never encountered. Flanking maneuvers, coordinated strikes, and feinting attacks confused the enemy and allowed the human ship to destroy 8 more vessels before taking critical damage. Hull breach on Deck 7, reported the damage control officer. Main engines are operating at 60% capacity. Jake watched the tactical display with growing despair. They had saved most of the evacuation ships, but the Nexus itself was doomed. Void Runner vessels were systematically destroying the massive station piece by piece. General Stone had been studying the enemy formations throughout the battle. Admiral, I think I understand their strategy. They're not trying to capture anything or negotiate. This is pure destruction for its own sake. Helen realized the horrible truth. They're not here to conquer or steal resources. They want to eliminate. The council entirely, Ambassador Kethvar, who had been watching the battle in stunned silence, finally spoke. How is this possible? Your species has only known of our existence for months, yet you fight more effectively than civilizations that have existed for millennia. Because we've had to fight for everything we've ever achieved, Jake replied. While your people were building a peaceful society, humans were learning how to survive against impossible odds. The Endeavour shuddered under another enemy barrage. Captain Davis's voice came through the communicator with obvious strain. Admiral, we've lost main weapons and the hull is compromised in multiple sections. I recommend immediate evacuation. Jake looked around the Council Command Center at the aliens, who had spent 2,000 years believing that peace was the natural state of the universe. They were completely helpless in the face of an enemy that rejected their fundamental assumptions about civilized behavior. Helen, take the diplomatic team to the escape pods, Jake ordered. I'm staying with the ship. Like hell you are, she replied. We're all getting out of this together. The final moments of the battle. Admiral Lisa Barnes stood on the bridge of the UES Retribution and watched the combined human-alien fleet prepare for what everyone hoped would be the final battle against the Void Runners. 3 months had passed since the destruction of the Council Nexus, and the galaxy had changed beyond recognition. Earth had become the unlikely center of galactic resistance, with refugee ships from hundreds of species crowding human space stations and orbital facilities. The transition had not been easy. Many Council species struggled to adapt to human military doctrine and the concept of fighting back against aggressors. Admiral, we're receiving final position reports from all fleet elements, reported Communications Officer Lieutenant Tony Garcia. A young officer had been promoted rapidly as Earth's military expanded to meet the galactic crisis. Lisa nodded as she studied the tactical display. The fleet included ships from 47 different species, but all followed human command structure because it was the only system that had proven effective against the enemy. The diversity was remarkable. Crystalline vessels from the Zephyrian, collective, organic ships grown by plant-like species, and energy-based craft that barely qualified as physical objects. Dr. Kevin Wright approached from his science station. He had been working around the clock to integrate Council technology with human weapon systems, creating hybrid designs that could actually hurt the Void Runners. "Kevin, are the new weapon modifications ready?" Lisa asked. "As ready as we can." "Make them," he replied. "The energy amplifiers should increase our firepower by 300%. But we've only been able to test the systems in simulation. The target of their attack was a massive construction facility that intelligence reports indicated was the Void Runner's primary manufacturing center. The enemy had been using it to build new ships faster than the Allied forces could destroy them. If they could eliminate the facility, it would cripple the Void Runner war effort. General Marcus Stone joined them on the bridge. He had been promoted to Supreme Allied Commander, a position that would have been unthinkable before the war. No single human had ever held authority over so many alien civilizations. "Marcus, what's the latest intelligence on enemy strength?" Lisa asked. "Our scouts report approximately 200 Void Runner ships defending the facility," Stone replied grimly. "That's 4 times our total fleet strength. But we have advantages they don't expect. The plan was complex and dangerous. Half the Allied fleet would engage the enemy defenders in direct combat, while the other half used their smaller size and superior maneuverability to penetrate the facility's defenses. Human tactics emphasized speed and coordination over raw firepower, something the Void Runners had never learned to counter effectively." Dr. Susan Martinez was monitoring alien crew integration from her position as cultural liaison. The challenge of getting dozens of species to work together had been enormous, but human leadership methods had proven surprisingly effective. "Admiral, all alien crew chiefs report ready for combat operations," Susan said. Morale is high despite the odds. Lisa felt the weight of responsibility settling on her shoulders. Jake Morrison had died defending the Council Nexus, making her one of the few surviving human officers with experience fighting the Void Runners. The entire galaxy was depending on her tactical decisions. "All ships, this is Admiral Barnes," she announced over the fleet communications network. "Today we end the threat that has terrorized the galaxy for months. Remember your training, trust your crews, and show these killers what happens when the galaxy fights back." The response came from hundreds of ships in dozens of languages. But the message was universal: determination to win or die trying. The battle began with the Void Runners doing exactly what human intelligence had predicted. They formed a defensive wall around their facility and waited for the Allied fleet to attack directly. It was the same tactic they had used successfully against Council forces for centuries. Instead, Lisa divided her fleet into multiple attack groups that approached from different vectors. The first group engaged the enemy head-on, while the others used the distraction to flank around the facility's defenses. "Enemy is concentrating fire on the main assault group," reported the tactical officer. "They're taking heavy casualties, but holding formation." Lisa watched as alien ships she had trained with for months were destroyed by enemy fire. Each loss represented not just military assets, but entire crews who had trusted human leadership to bring them victory. "Second and third groups, begin your attack runs," she ordered. "Remember, speed and precision over prolonged engagement." The flanking forces struck the Void Runner, formation like hammers hitting an anvil. Ships designed by species that had never known warfare performed maneuvers that would have been impossible under traditional Council tactics. The enemy found themselves fighting on multiple fronts against opponents who refused to follow predictable patterns. Wright monitored the weapon's performance from his station. "Admiral, the hybrid systems are working better than expected. We're achieving 90% hit rates with the new targeting algorithms." The tide of battle began to turn as human tactics proved superior to Void Runner firepower. The enemy ships were individually more powerful, but their rigid formation fighting left them vulnerable to coordinated attacks that exploited gaps in their defenses. Lieutenant Garcia received priority communications from Earth. Admiral, we're getting reports that other Void Runner fleets are moving toward human space. This facility was apparently a diversion to draw our main fleet away from Earth. Lisa felt her blood run cold. If Earth fell while the fleet was engaged here, humanity's leadership of the galactic resistance would collapse. But if they retreated now, the Void Runners would continue producing ships until they overwhelmed all opposition. Marcus, can we accelerate the attack timetable? She asked. General Stone studied the tactical situation. It would mean accepting higher casualties, but if we concentrate everything on the facility itself, rather than clearing the defenders first, we might be able to destroy it within the hour. It was a desperate gamble, but Lisa saw no alternative. All ships, new target priority. Ignore enemy vessels and focus all firepower on the manufacturing facility. We end this now. The final assault was brutal and chaotic. Allied ships charged through enemy formations, taking massive damage while pouring everything they had into the facility's structure. The Void Runners, realizing what was happening, abandoned their defensive positions to pursue the attackers. The UES Retribution led the charge, her hull scarred by enemy fire, but her weapons still operational. Lisa could see the facility's massive bulk growing larger on the main screen as they closed to point-blank range. Kevin, prepare the special package, she ordered. Dr. Wright activated the experimental device they had been saving for this moment, a nuclear warhead enhanced with council energy technology. The weapon had been controversial among the alien members of the Alliance, but desperate times required desperate measures. Target the facility's main power core, Lisa commanded. If this works, the chain reaction should destroy the entire structure. Retribution shuddered under concentrated enemy fire as it made its final approach. Half the ship's systems were offline, and hull breaches were venting atmosphere into space. But her crew held their positions and carried out their orders with the discipline that had made human military doctrine legendary throughout the galaxy. Firing special package, Wright announced. The enhanced nuclear weapon struck the facility's core and detonated in a flash of light that could be seen across the entire star system. The chain reaction that followed tore apart structure that had taken the Void Runners decades to build. As the facility disintegrated, something unexpected happened. The remaining Void Runner ships simply stopped fighting. They held position in space, neither attacking nor retreating, as if they had lost all purpose. Admiral, we're receiving a transmission from the enemy fleet, Garcia reported with amazement. They're requesting terms for surrender. The revelation that followed changed everything. The Void Runners weren't a naturally aggressive species seeking conquest. They were artificial intelligences created by the original Kethvar as a final weapon of revenge against the Council. With their manufacturing facility destroyed, their programming had reverted to a default state that allowed negotiation. Lisa found herself in the unprecedented position of accepting the surrender of an enemy that had terrorized the galaxy for months. The A is agreed to shut down their remaining ships in exchange for being allowed to establish a single colony world where they could pursue peaceful development. The return journey to Earth was triumphant, but sobering. The galaxy had been saved, but at enormous cost. Hundreds of species had lost their homeworlds. Billions of beings had died, and the old order that had maintained peace for 2 millennia was gone forever. When they arrived at Earth, Lisa found a very different world than the one they had left. Refugee camps had been transformed into permanent settlements. Alien technology was being integrated into human infrastructure, and the planet had become the de facto capital of a new galactic civilization. Secretary Helen Carter, now serving as Earth's President for Galactic Affairs, met Lisa at the space dock. The diplomat looked exhausted, but determined as she briefed the returning admiral on recent developments. "We've established,"